The Yoruba Civil Wars. The Yoruba Civil Wars were ushered in by the final breakdown of the Oyo Empire, which followed the Fulani conquest of Lorin in 1817. They occurred mainly in the Yoruba states of Ibadan, Ilorin, Ekot, Egba, and Ijebu. The civil wars were as a result of political, religious, and economic conflicts among these states. The collapse of Oyo Central Authority and Army. This was followed by Kakafo, Afonja's succession, Kakafo's revolt in 1817, and the subsequent declaration of Lorini's independence. Hence, Oyo weakened. Ijebu and Egba wanted to be independent. This heightened the hostility in the area, leading to civil wars. The Fulani exerted pressure on the empire from the north, and that led to waves of refugees from northern states of Yoruba. The Fulani carried out a jihad on the pagan Yoruba states, which included Oyo. The situation was aggravated by the struggle for supremacy among the Obas in the south. The Fulani also played off one king against another. This was done to increase the area under their control, like in case of Owu War from 1821 to 1825, and the alliance between Ijebu and Ife. This resulted in refugees who founded Bandan in 1829 and Abeokuta in 1830, which grew into powerful city-states. Wars that were caused by constitutional disputes after the death of Alaafin Atiba in 1859 and the election of Aremo Adelu as the new Alaafin prompted Kakafo Karume of Ijaye not to recognize him. This forced Aremo Adelu to wage the Ijaye-Ibadan War, and hence the alliance between Ijebu Ode and Egba against Ijebu Remo. Tension mounted following Dahone's attacks on Yoruba towns. The attacks also led to confusion in Yoruba land. The expansion programs of Dahone in 1821 resulted in the capture of Okedan in 1844. States raiding each other for slaves for both local and export markets also led to civil wars. Ibadan was prominent in slave trafficking, especially against Ijesha and Ekiti in the 1840s. Ibadan had traded with the British and acquired a lot of wealth from which she wanted to maintain and make other states submissive to her. Another cause was interference with the trade routes by the coastal middlemen, especially Egba of Abeokuta and the Ijebu against the inland state of Ibadan, Ogbo, Oshogbo, and New Oyo. Hence, this led to a long struggle between Abeokuta and Ibadan. The wars resulted in capture of Lorin by the Fulani in 1831. There was also destruction and absorption of metropolitan Oyo into the Fulani Emirate of Lorin. Hence, Oyo lost her independence. Alaafin Atiba was forced to establish a new Oyo in the south. A number of new states and towns, for example, Abeokuta and Ibadan, were founded by refugees from Owu War between 1821 and 1825. The wars made it difficult for the Yoruba chiefs to rally around the Alaafin in defense of the metropolitan Oyo. The chiefs were occupied by the numerous wars in various parts of the empire. These wars led to misery and suffering among the Yoruba people. The Yoruba unit was destroyed by wars. The Yoruba states no longer saw one another as descendants of a common ancestry. Oduduwa clan, they fought and betrayed each other as foreigners. The wars weakened the traditional social, political, and religious Yoruba institutes, which created a favorable atmosphere for missionary activities. Christianity and Western civilization, which were taught and took roots in the area. There was the intensification of slave raids. Slaves were mainly war captives. In the 19th century, Yoruba became the greatest exporters of African slaves in West Africa, and the British were forced to set up a preventive measure at the coast. The wars led to the displacement of people. Therefore, the Yoruba state suffered from famine because of agriculture was neglected and much effort was concentrated on the wars, while many people fled from their homes due to the wars. Social and economic progress was laid in Yoruba land. Towns were destroyed, farmlands laid to waste, thousands were killed, and others were forced into refuge. The wars led to underdevelopment of the area due to destruction of property and loss of lives. The wars led to the British intervention to end civil strife and restore a free flow of legitimate trade. This led to the setting up of a British garrison at Zaro in 1890 and the punitive expedition against Ijebu in 1892. To end aggression, the British signed treaties with Abeokuta, Oyo and Ibadan in 1893, which ultimately resulted in trade boom for the mutual benefits of West Africa and the European traders. The decline of the Oyo Empire. The mighty empire of Oyo, once the largest of the forest kingdom of West Africa, had by the late 18th century declined due to internal and external factors. The empire was too big for effective control, and that made the control of all provinces difficult. Its capital was also located on the northern edge of the empire, therefore making administration and monitoring for the remaining parts of the empire difficult. Another cause of the decline was the fact that by the second half of the 18th century, the leaders had become too weak to resist any form of challenge to their rule. Leaders who took over after the death of Alassane were incompetent. They were weak, lacked cavalry and good leadership. Their enemies, on the other hand, had well-trained and highly motivated armies under good leadership. The end of slavery trade also led to Oyo's decline in that the Alafan who obtained great wealth from it had become and oppressive. Slaves rebelled and secured their own independence. Furthermore, Oyo's vassal states like Dahomey had become more powerful that they broke away from Oyo in 1821. This was a big blow to the empire. Having lost one of its big member states, Bono, Rorin, and Nupe also broke away in 1783 and 1791 respectively. Oyo then lost tributes from the vassal states, and that led to her decline. Oyo's system of administration also had loopholes. The Obas and Naris, or the governors, were not well supervised from the center, and that led to weakness in administration. Senior officials did not respect the Alafan. Among these officials, Bashirun, Kakafo, and Eso that forced the king to commit suicide in 1706. The unwritten constitution that loopholes in this vast empire. The ambitious Bashiruns and Alafans took advantage of the fact to smuggle or fight for power, which led to political stability and decline of the empire. The policy of forcing the defeated Kakafo to commit suicide led to the decline of the empire. Some powerful Kakafo like Kakafo Afoja refused to commit suicide and broke away with followers and succeeded in the establishment of their own state, leaving Oyo to collapse. The Fulani jihadists attacked Oyo and weakened it further. These captured Rorin in 1831 and overran Oyo capital in 1837. Fulani jihadists supported vassal states and Kakafo to establish their own breakaway states. The army was weakened by constant civil wars as it was involved in internal wars with vassal states. It suffered a number of defeats from vassal states such as Egba, Ogu, and Nupe. Economically, the shifting of trade from the north to the south also played a big role in the collapse of the empire. The end of slave trade and the coming of European goods also turned the Yoruba people away from traditional trade, and that finally isolated Oyo from the source of economic power. The importance of horses for cavalry was cut off, which weakened their military strength. Agriculture was disrupted, and that led to widespread of famine in Oyo. The local industry also collapsed because the wars destroyed the manpower which was used in the weaving, spinning, and blacksmithing. Yet these were the major products during trade, hence leading to her decline. Lack of unity in the empire also accelerated the collapse of Oyo. For example, in 1781, Gezo, the king of Dahomey, refused to pay annual tributes to the Alafan. That action of the Obas who took advantage of the situation to regain independence further weakened the Oyo leadership. The delicate situation was made worse by external factors when the British finally annexed Oyo in 1890s, and that marked the final blow to the mighty Oyo Empire that had existed for long. Reasons why Oyo lasted for a long time. The empire lasted for a long time from the 18th to 19th century due to its factor. The empire had an efficient, well-organized army which was used in the expansion and suppression of internal and external wars. It was used for defense and expansion of the empire. The army was led by strong commanders known as Kakafo. The organization of the empire with its central government was led by the Alafan, assisted by a council of elders and the Oyo Mesi. The strong government system enabled Oyo to last for a long time. The economy of the empire depended much on agriculture, trade, industries, wealth from taxes and tributes. The agriculture sector produced enough food to feed Oyo's population, and this enabled the empire to last longer. The leadership provided by effective Alafins led to the long existence of the empire. The stability in the empire brought about by the balance of power from the Alafins to their chiefs. The Oyo Mesi also contributed to its survival. Unity in Yoruba land through the use of common language, religion, culture, and royalty to the kingship from traditions of common ancestors led to empire's long period of existence. All the parts of empire had sense of belonging which forced them to unite. There was hardly any intention of revolting against the Alafins. The activities of the Oyo Mesi, especially in the fields of legislature, executive and judiciary, in which they had the duty of checking on the Alafins. Power also enabled the empire to last long. Political stability was brought about by the system of checks and balances of institutions in the empire, which eased communication and trade, which brought in wealth.